Hey everybody, I'm Deborah Richmond. The quilt behind me is called HoneyComb, and this is a quilt top. It has not been quilted yet, but I wanted to show it to you because it's such a simple top and it goes together very quickly. Now this is done entirely of HalfSquare Triangles, so I'll show you the unit. This unit is what we're going to be making over and over and over again. Half of the square is a white background color and half is a print. Now everything in this quilt is done with the grays, blacks, and yellow prints, all randomly put together. So you put together a whole bunch of HalfSquare Triangles in those colors, and then as you start assembling it, you grab them randomly and put them together. And I'm going to show you how you put this pattern together, but first let's show you how to make the HalfSquare Triangles. We're going to use triangles on a roll, which is a paper product that helps you create very quick and accurate HalfSquare Triangles. So let's show you how it's done. The entire quilt is made up of this unit here. This is a HalfSquare Triangle, and this is going to be finished a 6-inch HalfSquare Triangle. Now right now, if we measure it, this measures 6.5 inch, and that's because once we use this in the quilt, we will be sewing a 1/4 inch seam on all edges. We'll shrink it down to 6 inches. So in order to make these units, we're going to be using a product called Triangles on a Roll, and it looks like this. This is the size to make for the HalfSquare Triangles. And you can see it comes in a roll, tells you what size. This particular paper comes in lots of different sizes. We're going to use this one. Because these are nice big units, this quilt goes together very quickly. So that's really nice. If you're a beginner, that's really nice. It's also nice if you're going to be doing a very large quilt for a gift. This goes much faster. So the units that you want to work with is 2 of these sections. That's what I have found works the best in your sewing machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut along this solid line here in order to cut a piece of paper that's going to be workable for us. Alright, so you see that I have cut the piece of paper we're going to be using. We are going to be pinning this paper right to the pieces of fabric. So what we're going to do is going to put right sides together. And I'm going to show you, we have this here. I have 2 pieces of fabric. 1/2 is going to be white, 1/2 is going to be the black print. Right sides together, and we're going to lay our piece of paper down onto our 2 pieces of fabric and pin them. And I'm going to put pins in 4 different pins so that we can keep this nice and secure. Now because I'm going to be putting this in my sewing machine, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut off this extra here we don't need. We're going to trim it all off later, but this just makes it a little bit easier for us to work with. Now we're going to be taking this piece and putting it into our sewing machine. We're going to be starting here at this edge. We're going to be sewing through the dotted line. So you'll see me sewing, and I'm going to follow these arrows, leave it in my machine, keep sewing. When I get to this end, I'm going to turn it around and keep sewing so that all of our dotted lines are covered with stitches. So I'm going to start right up here where it shows me the arrows. I'm going to put it right into my sewing machine, lower my presser foot, and I have it lined up so that my needle is going to sew directly on that line. Now what's nice about this paper is because it makes these units very accurate, and that's why I like it. It's fast and it's accurate. Now as I get to the edge here, I'm going to sew right off of the paper. I'm going to put my needle down, pick up my presser foot. I'm just going to spin this piece, leaving it in the machine. And you got to work with a little bit here. Let me get it folded over. Okay. I'm going to lower my presser foot, my needle is still in, and I'm going to keep sewing. So you can see this is why I like to use a piece that's no larger than these 2 areas, and that's because we do have to turn it and we have to work with it inside the machine. I'm still sewing on the dotted line, and when I get to the end, I'm going to sew off the paper and I'm going to curve around a little bit. That's because my needle is down, pick up my presser foot, I'm going to spin this around. What I need to get to now is to this side. I'm going to lower my presser foot, sew over here. I'm still not on the paper yet. Line it up, and as I sew onto the paper, I now am on that dotted line. Now you're going to want to stay on that dotted line as close as you can. Maybe at first this is, it might take a little bit of getting used to, but really this is very simple sewing. Your pins are keeping the three layers together. When I get to this edge here, I'm going to get right up to that last stitch, leave my needle down, pick up my presser foot, turn, and here we go again. Where we're stitching, these become the seams. We don't have to worry about 1/4 inch seams yet. It's doing the work for us because when we cut this apart, these will automatically have 1/4 inch seams, and I'll show you that. Alright, so I'm going to sew right off. I'm going to put my needle up, open up my presser foot, cut my threads, and so you will see now that we have all of these dotted lines are now sewn on with thread that we've just put. If you turn it over, you can see exactly where we've sewn. It keeps it nice and even where your stitches are. This also holds the fabric together because as we cut along this line, you're going to see we're going to be cutting on a bias. That is often the part that distorts when you're doing half-square triangles. So this paper and this method is acting as a foundation for us so that everything stays put. Okay, so I'm going to take the pins out before we do any cutting. And using any ruler that has a nice straight edge is all we need here. We are going to now be cutting the solid lines. That includes the solid lines on the outer edges and also the solid lines that run between our sewn seams. And you'll see this solid line here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Line up my ruler, make my cut. On the end. And again, everything is staying together because it's already been stitched. All right, one more side here. And I'm going to go ahead and cut these here. It doesn't matter what order you cut on the solid lines, as long as you cut all of them. One more solid line here between my 2 rows of stitching. Okay, gives me 2 there, and one more solid line here between my 2 rows. All right. So now you see we end up with 4 units that are the half-square triangles. Now what I should have mentioned before you'll need to know is that when you're stitching, you're going to want to shorten your stitch length on your sewing machine, and that's so that when we rip this paper off, the stitches will stay in. But I'll give you a couple tips here of how to make sure that happens. We're going to now take that sewing line is right there. We're going to fold our paper over and just press it right along with your nail, or you can use something hard if you like. And then I fold it back again, same way this way, to press that paper on that seam. It just makes it easier when I go to tear it off. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I am going to grab both pieces of paper, the piece that I folded over and the larger piece. I'm going to hold on to, I'm going to rip it just a little bit. I want to hold on to those stitches right here because those will be the ones that tend to pull away when we're ripping. But if I hold on to them here and I tear it quick, it comes off with a nice easy tear and it keeps the stitches in place. So I'm going to hold on to those stitches, pull it across, hold on to them again. Now sometimes it'll come across in pieces. Let me see if I can show you. It usually goes faster than that. It's because I have my, let me get my machine out of my way here so that I can have plenty of room. This is how I'm usually doing it. All right. Give it a little tug, hold on to those stitches. And you can see, so it's really pretty fast. What I like to do is I like to sew a lot of units and then I'll sit and watch television and I'll tear off all the backs. But now all we need to do is press this open. And what I'm opening up here is my Omnigrid mat. This is half cutting surface and half ironing surface. I usually have this right next to me as I'm sewing with my mini iron because it's really nice for this type of work. As I'm sewing, I have it next to me and I can press as I piece. Okay, so our iron is getting hot here. So I'm going to open this up, and you can see now we have our half square triangle. I'm going to open it so that the seam lays to the dark side, and so you may have heard that before. You want to press to the dark side. The reason we want to press this seam to the dark side is so that it doesn't show through. Sometimes your lighter fabrics, you may see that seam show through in the finished quilt. So just to make sure, we press to the dark side. So I'm going to open it up. And you want to press, you don't want to do so much ironing as you just want to do pressing. So first I start on the back and I open that seam to the dark side. I'm sorry, turn that seam to the dark side, press, and then I'm going to turn it over. And I'm going to give that seam a nice press again to set that seam. Now you can also use some of the starches that are out there that are really nice. That's always nice if you think you want to get a nice starched piece. Either way works really well. The last step for our half square triangles is that we are now going to trim off the little corners, and I'll show you that here. So by that, what I mean is we're going to be trimming off these little points. When we turn to this to press it, that will fold over that seam. We can just get those out of our way so that when we are sewing these together, it's a lot easier and you don't have as much bulk in those corners where you're matching seams. And that is how you sew your half square triangle using the Triangles on a Roll paper. So you can see here is the unit of your half square triangles. This entire quilt is made with half square triangles. You're going to put this together in 4 quadrants, and I'll show you where the quadrants are. So here's the left quadrant, here's the center line right here, and here's the very center of the quilt, and so here's the bottom of that first quadrant. This section of the quilt is done with rows of 5 squares sewn together in a row of 5, and then you're going to do that 7 times. So 7 rows, row number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7. When you have this section of the quilt put together, you're going to lay that aside, you're going to start again. Now you're going to start on quadrant 2. This time you're going to layer your squares together so that the white is on the upper right hand side. That is opposite from the first quadrant. So you'll start here with 5 blocks again, row number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So right now you have these 2 quadrants put together. Here's the center of the quilt. You can see now how you're getting that pattern appear, and that's because you have your triangles on opposite sides. So as this side of the quilt, all the white is on the upper right. This side of the quilt, all the white is on the upper left. You're going to do the very opposite when you go down here to the bottom. You're going to simply turn your triangles so that your white is on the bottom left. So here again, here's this row starting 5 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 rows makes this quarter. And then here on this last quarter, you'll start with your print at the top and your white at the bottom right. 5 of those, 7 rows. You're going to then take your 4 pieces. You're going to first sew the first 2 pieces together. These are basically mini quilts. Now you can put them together into one large. So that's the first half of the quilt. Sew your 2 bottom pieces together here at that center seam. Now take your upper and your lower piece, and you're going to sew them all the way across those 2 big pieces that completes the top. Now what's nice about the half square triangles is that you can put these into all kinds of different patterns. This is just one way to lay them out. You could put all of your triangles facing one way, you'd still have a very beautiful quilt. For this pattern to appear, turning those blocks in those different quadrants is what makes that pattern appear. You can pick up these colors very randomly. So once you have your stack of a bunch of half square triangles that are in yellows and blacks, that are in grays, you're now going to just pick them up randomly as you sew them together. There really is no particular way you have to put these colors together. For instance, you don't have to have black, 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 yellow, yellow, yellow. You just do them randomly. And the pattern will appear from the direction of the triangles. And be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can do so here by clicking the subscribe button. That way you'll find out about new videos as they become available.